quote from because it was like, Mom said, God gave you what you wanted in order to show you what you needed. And I was like, yeah.
There's the quote. Thanks, Mom.
That and everybody else was like,
Yeah,
I was like, hey, I broke up with her. And they're like, yes, we knew that wasn't going to work out. I was like, why didn't y'all tell me?
Testament right now. We're in 1 Samuel, and one of the things that we've been saying throughout this journey is that if you miss a day, which is going to happen, you're going to miss a day, but if you miss a day, don't miss two. All right, so come back, reread with the 5 chapters, and then start fresh. Start that day. So if you missed an episode, don't beat yourself up. If you missed 5 chapters, don't beat yourself up, but try not to miss 2 in a row. So we're on 1 Samuel chapter 11 through 15 today, and we have with us once again Bishop, so glad to have you. And I know you said just a little bit before talking that chapter 12 really stood out to you in this, and you wanted to maybe cap on chapter 12.
Yeah, well, if you look at like the heading that we see in this Bible, it says Samuel's farewell address. Samuel's getting ready to finish his time here. And he says here that your king is now your leader. And that's in verse 2. But I'm going to go back to verse 1. It says, I have done as you asked and given you a king. He's talking to the people of Israel here. Remember that we talked about in a couple of videos ago how Israel pleaded, we want that king.
We want the king. We want a king. Well, maybe decide what's the difference between, because we're talking about Samuel, and now we're talking about Samuel is saying goodbye, but now he is like bringing up a king. What they had before they had a king? Maybe if you want to talk to that, like what was Samuel? He was a judge, and maybe talk about some of the judges. What was a judge, and then how did that transition to a king?
Yeah, well, we've had Judges is the book before here in 1 Samuel, so that's leading into these kings. We've had people that would come in and kind of bring the Israelites back into God, kind of show them how to repent, how to come back to God. And so we had some good judges, we had some bad judges. We had judges who needed to be built up into leaders who we know them as today. Yep. We've had some who, like Samson, just kind of completely did his own thing. So we see a lot of differences in the judges and their characteristics about them. But now it is the Israelites are saying, well, we want to be like the other nations. We don't want judges. We want a king. We want a ruler.
Exactly. And so now we're seeing, from there, they went their own way. Now Saul is being initiated as king. Samuel's giving his farewell address, and then picks up in chapter 12.
Yeah, and that's where we are. And if we look down a little bit further in verse 10, it says, then they cried out to the Lord again and confessed, we have sinned by turning away from the Lord and worshiping the images of Baal and other idols, as you continue on in that verse. And I think, what about in our lives? How many times have we cried out to God and said, I've done this, God, I've messed up, I've worshiped other things in my life, I've put other priorities above you. And we see that over and over again in the Old Testament, that they keep coming back right at the moment that they messed up. But, talking about like idols in our life, how many idols can we make? I mean, we can make video recording an idol of our lives. We can make cell phones an idol of our lives. We can make anything an idol of our lives, and it can be above God.
It can be a good
sports,
thing.
TV, friends, family.
Yep. Even ourselves, because what we see in this, I guess you'd call it saving face, but he sins, Saul does, in chapter 15, and after he sins, he pleads out to God, like, oh, forgive me, but he's talking to Samuel, and finally we get to the heart of Saul's forgiveness, and it says this in verse 30, it says, Saul pleaded again, I know I've sinned, but please at least honor me before the elders, and my people, and before Israel by coming back with me. So what Saul's doing is saying, I know I've sinned, I've screwed up, that's fair, but let me save face, so why don't you just come on back with me, instead of, maybe acknowledging to the public that he had sinned. He just says, okay, let's keep it between us, and, go on our way. So, we can even make our self-image, or and even speaking about that, I know you wrote a whole book about your journey with self-image and kind of through that whole thing. So I don't know if anybody maybe can speak on that better than you can, how to not make yourself an idol, and how to make God, God. Maybe if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, well, I wrote a book and published it back in December 2024. It's called Look in the Mirror. It's my story of losing my hair to alopecia when I was 9 years old and in 3rd grade. and then going through a journey of lacking self-confidence, lacking, finding my identity in my hair loss and being made fun of. And
Best looking bald guy I've ever seen.
Oh, well, there's probably better, but...
You and Joe Rogan.
Yeah, I mean, so maybe Joe Rogan sees this, maybe we can have a competition. But when I look back at my third grade years into where I am now, 16 plus years later, I look at how it was a journey of realizing that when things are taken away, when your identity is changed, your true identity is when you surrender it to Jesus Christ. And that's your first identity, is being a child of Him. It's not in your appearance and how you look like. We build ourselves up. I heard it described one time that often, the thing now is to take selfies or videos, but we'll go in there and edit ourselves and make ourselves look better. But the thing about Jesus is He sees the unfiltered you. He sees what you're trying to hide. He sees that. Like I called it look in the mirror, my book, Look in the Mirror.
Right.
Because not only was it a physical, me actually looking in the mirror and having a conversation with myself and with God, but it was actually a moment of just realizing that God's Word is like a mirror. Jesus is like a mirror in your life. He shows you your true, honest reflection about who you are. And that's why I wrote the book, to not only tell my story of losing my hair and the struggles that I went through, being very vulnerable and open about some hard times that I faced, from bullying to self-doubt to feelings that I had about myself, but to ultimately finding my confidence in Jesus and realizing He's given me that true, honest reflection.
Not to make that an idol,
Right.
And I think sometimes we can even make our worry our idol, or our self-appearance, or whatever it is, and we can worship that instead of like really coming to the grips of like, hey, God made me in His image. And so I think like for all of the people watching this, I mean, how many out of how many people do you think are actually right now struggling with doubt of their self-image? I would say maybe hundreds.
I would say we all at some point
struggle with that. Yeah, absolutely. And so to all, especially if there's a young person maybe watching this right now, like if you're dealing with self-image and maybe even bodily harm, or I know some people will make themselves throw up. And so like if that's you and you're listening to this and you're struggling with that, know that you are made in the image of God. No matter what people have said or what you think or whatever it is, like He said, look in the mirror and understand that your Creator has crafted you and made you, and He's put His Spirit inside you if you believe in Him. And no, you cannot be more beautiful than that. And so that is the truth. So don't worship appearance. Don't worship what other people think about you. Truly worship God. And I think that's the story that at least I got from 1 Samuel 11 through 15. But Bishop, always great. And I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll leave a link in the description. And at the end of this video, whoever leaves the most comments of what they got out of these chapters, we'll actually send them, maybe if that's okay with you, we'll send them a copy of Look in the Mirror. We'll send them a copy of your book for free. If that's
I would love to do that, because really, book sales are great and getting that up is great. All authors want that. I mean, you're an author too. The struggle behind that. You want to sell books, but more importantly, I think the cool thing about our books is that we have the heart of wanting to help others with that. So I'll be glad to send a free copy to somebody who really wants to get that book. But it sounds like you want those likes and comments going up. So let's do that. That's a fun challenge.
Well, what we do is, so like they'll in the comments they'll say, hey, this is what I got out of the chapter. So like 11 to 15, I got XYZ. So I think that's a really cool, like maybe that'll motivate somebody to really start to say, hey, look, I read this chapter. This is what I got out of it. And then, so anyways.
Build that community. I love it.
Absolutely. But anyways, okay, well, until tomorrow, we'll be in the next couple of chapters, 16 through 20. And we're actually trucking along with Samuel now. So we're getting closer and closer to the end. And thank you so much. And hey, I'm excited about tomorrow. We got some big things coming up in the chapters tomorrow. So until then, we'll see y'all next time. Peace.